Hello there, my name is Derek and I'd like to welcome you to the Dektronics Lab and show you some of the things we've been working on. So the story begins back when I went ahead and developed the initial prototype of the Printalyzer enlarging timer. Now, one of the unique features of this device is the ability to do metered exposure of darkroom prints. The problem is, in order to do that, you need to calibrate it to your paper. And in order to do that, you need a way of actually measuring exposures on your paper. Now, unfortunately, the best instrument for doing that is something called a densitometer. The problem is, if you want to get a densitometer today, you basically have two choices. One choice is you can buy a clunker like this, and these work very well. The problem is they're big, heavy, take up a lot of space, and there are obviously used equipment left over from the 80s and 90s. And if anything breaks, getting replacement parts really isn't very easy. So if you don't want to deal with that, you can buy something new, but your best option for buying something new is one of these, and these tend to be very expensive because they're sold to a niche market. So I wasn't satisfied with either of those options. So what I did is I wanted to see how cheap could I actually make a densitometer that would do what I needed to do. So this project began with doing a lot of reading, digging out the ISO specs, and figuring out what it would actually take. So if I was going to measure paper, I basically needed to measure the reflection. And in order to measure that, I'd need an LED and a light sensor and a microcontroller to put it all together. So what I went ahead and did is I figured out the minimum hardware required and started to build these little prototype boards that put all those things together, just to do a little bit of initial R&D. And I put those into these simple little 3D printed enclosures so I could start doing some testing. It's not much to it, it just guides the light, has an opening at the bottom and some buttons to control it, just to experiment with some sensors. I went a little deep from there on and started building these gizmos. Now, what this is a lot of these light sensors come with these development boards that you can use to connect into a computer and evaluate them. And so I built a 3D printed jig where I could put lights, LEDs around. I'd run them to a driver that was external and mount one of these dev boards on. And this allowed me to do more direct lab tests, I guess you could say, instead of actually having to build up my own hardware. And this was also very useful for collecting data and evaluating and seeing, you know, do I need to position the lights at just the right angle, or can I guide them with a 3D printed enclosure? So a lot of useful R&D came out of these things. Then I had to decide where to go from there. So I basically had two choices. One, I could continue developing this reflection densitometer as an accessory to go along with the Printalyzer enlarging timer, trying to make it as cheap as possible, or I could actually beef it up a bit, add the ability to measure transmission, which is also, you know, how much light passes through a piece of film, make it into a more useful tool, and develop it into a full-fledged product. Ultimately, that's the route that I decided to take. So the current prototypes for that look like this. These are complete devices. So as you can see, you put your film or paper in here, It has some springs. You close it and you can take measurements. It also has a display and some control buttons. And it connects via a USB port to either a power adapter or a computer. So this is the full-featured device that I'm currently working on, and I hope to bring this to market as an actual product, likely starting with something like a Kickstarter early next year. I'll obviously be making more videos on this as time goes by, showing off everything about it in more proper promotional type of video. So that's basically where things stand. I just wanted to make a little casual video showing off what I've been up to. And yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave comments down below, and I'll see you later. Bye!